The problem is, how much resource does Kunos have to actually improve the VR experience? Positive things are, I think you can tune it maybe a little bit better. Right everyone, how good is Assetto Corsa EVO in VR with the update? Is it good or bad? We're going to find out. And we're in, oh my goodness, a BMW M4 at Suzuka. And you let me know obviously what you think in the comments, but if you're a VR sim racer, I'm certain you will have been frustrated by Assetto Corsa EVO in VR, trying to get it to work efficiently, trying to get the frames, oh my goodness. Wow. And we are, by the way, running this on the Pimax Crystal Light headset. This is a sponsored headset from Pimax, so big thanks for Pimax for providing the headset. We know it's capable of amazing things. We know Le Mans Ultimate has got VR mode now. We know iRacing is great in VR. I love ACC in VR as well. I think F1 is pretty bad in VR. I think Rennsport is pretty bad in VR. Gran Turismo 7 is incredible in VR. So where does Assetto Corsa EVO stack up? So the first thing is, I'm running on an RTX 4090, the fastest available graphics card in the world. I think you'll agree. And I've had to turn down a lot of settings and run at 70% render resolution. And I don't mind... It's going to have to be a hell of a drift. I don't mind too much, but you can see as these cars go in the distance a little bit, and also the white lines, there is a lot of anti-aliasing. Sorry, there's a lot of aliasing going on, and not a lot of anti-aliasing, I would say. And that is where I really just don't like VR in sim racing, when you have all these jagged, shimmery lines. It's just very distracting. It's not nice in any possible way. Rennsport was atrocious at it, and so is F1. It's something that you just don't get in Gran Turismo 7. We take it for granted. I prefer having a softer looking game without the shimmering. Often kind of mesh or netting is really bad for it. Often power lines are really bad for it. You see the power lines there. And Evo's not very good at it. Now, positive things are, I think you can tune it maybe a little bit better than in the original version when the game first came out of early access. That was really difficult to get any performance out of it. You can also modify the UI quite nicely for VR very simply just by dragging it. It's even simpler than iRacing. That's a plus. The car handling is fantastic. And because I like driving road cars so much in EVO, and I love feeling the weight transfer, especially in something like the BMW M4, when you get on the power, when you slam on the brakes, you feel there's a lot of mass here. You can feel that pitching very well in VR. The interior is, I mean, the wheels are always nice in VR games. And by the way, if you do have Gran Turismo 7 on PS5, I thoroughly recommend just looking at all of the cockpits, jumping in all of the cars, going to the VR showroom menu. It's a better experience than you have in Assetto Corsa EVO VR. And there is one thing that worries me overall, which is that Assetto Corsa EVO ditched Unreal Engine that they've been using in ACC that I quite enjoyed from a VR experience. I think the 4090 was just able to brute force its way through a lot of the issues, and I've had some very fun racing, as you've seen on this channel, in ACC VR in a variety of different headsets. They ditched it, we thought partly to make the VR better, but this VR experience is still very much early access, and that's risky with VR because, you know, people can get sick. You know, I've got an amazing headset here, an amazing graphics card, and an amazing CPU all working in tandem to try and get me a passable experience. By the way, the mission is to catch this pack. I have to improve my driving here. It's the first time doing this combo in this car. But if you don't have the top of the range equipment, you're just going to have a really bad experience, I think. Or you're going to have to tinker a lot. But you're definitely going to be compromising a huge amount. And this is fundamentally a worse experience in VR, I would say, than Assetto Corsa Competizione. And definitely from Assetto Corsa. I mean, the original Assetto Corsa is really, really, really good in VR. So it's a downgrade right now with this new engine, and that's fine if they're going to improve the game. If the game's going to get better, I don't have an issue with that. The problem is, how much resource does Kunos have to actually improve the VR experience. Remember, they've actually got to add a campaign mode. They've got to really, you know, make the driving academy an actual game experience and not just a start and end point. They have to add a whole free roam system, and they've got to make that work in VR, because that will be a huge thing, by the way. If that is not playable in VR, I think players won't take that lightly, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's significant issues getting that working in VR, because it seems to be the more cars you add to a race, it really, the frame rate really struggles. So in VR, when you've got lots of traffic, or we're hoping lots of traffic and lots of environments to load in, I do wonder whether they're actually going to be able to do that. I hope so. I don't have any news to the contrary. I just want to make that clear. But that would be a big issue. But my general point is they've got so many things to work on. It's a small studio. Clearly they have the fundamental handling model. The handling is good. The handling is fun. I like the handling. It's probably my favourite handling sim for road cars. 100%. You know, up there with the original Assetto Corsa. Probably prefer it. It just feels a little bit more agile. A little bit more fun on the brakes as well. There's a yellow flag here. Hopefully somebody... Oh, someone's gone off! They've run out of fuel. And it's a shame to have that downgrade in terms of the VR perspective, because otherwise it would be nice to have such a solid VR experience with better handling and hopefully better graphics as well. But unfortunately, the VR experience isn't quite there yet. And we know it's not for lack of power, or... We know it's not for lack of resolution in the headset. And like I said, I'm having to run this at 70% scale. That's not something I've ever had to do in iRacing or ACC. And I'm running it at 90 Hz in my headset, and I'm not sure we're getting to 90 Hz. Whereas in iRacing, I will play iRacing at 120 Hz in this headset, and it's like an arcade experience. It's like back in the day, you'd go to the arcade and the screens just refreshed better, and it was just a better experience. And it's a shame because the sun's setting now at Suzuka. We've got the mist, it kind of makes more sense in VR. We've got really nice sounding cars, which is very important for VR as well. Like I said, the suspension of the car loads really nicely. It makes you, you know, you understand that the car's loaded. It's satisfying when you push the loud pedal and the car kind of like pushes out where you want it to go, especially in something like the M4. It's just a really satisfying feeling that's hard to explain unless you've experienced VR sim racing, but it's basically similar to what you might have in real life. Those small sensations, that's where VR is magical. The fact that as you move your head a micromillimeter, every single pixel moves in the opposite direction to compensate is pretty incredible. But it's still very rough. This experience, I can kind of see how this experience would be incredible. I always forget that there's one more lap. I can kind of see how this experience would be incredible if there wasn't as much aliasing, if the internal resolution was higher. I would feel more like I'm at Suzuka in this incredible sunset as it reflects off the tarmac there. I would maybe glance down at the car a bit more and look at the dials, etc. But they're a little bit pixelated because I'm not running at this native resolution. But I just I'm not really sure how we're going to get there. The hardware is leading the way here for Evo than the software. And it's something that I noticed when I went to the Sim Racing Expo in Germany, where Evo made its debut and I played Evo. It was the only real notable software. Everything else was better hardware, better wheels, better shifters, better VR headsets, better rigs, better active pedals. It was all hardware, hardware, hardware. And this software, this doesn't feel like a 2025 experience, I have to be honest. So, and this is me running it on the best possible equipment, so I want to love this. I love racing in VR. I would want it to become my VR sim, but I still think there's a long way to go. I'm just being honest with you. Let me know what you think in the comments, whether you're watching this as someone thinking about getting into VR, or whether you've been trying Assetto Corsa EVO VR yourself. Can't wait to hear from you, and I'll see you next time.